Today, I'm Laura Manson, there's Fariba, Odemaris, and Joelle, and we're going to talk about ideas for camera use in an online environment. So we'll just quickly give you an overview of what our agenda for today will be for our time. We're going to talk about how do we come up with this camera use? What's the background? What's the rationale? And what are some recommendations? And then at the very end, we're going to open it up for questions. And hopefully you're going to add to ideas of how we can appropriately use cameras with students and equity in mind. So just a little background. Okay, not sure why that happened. All right. So how do we begin to have this dialogue and how did we come up with this resolution? Was there was interest on campus about synchronous teaching, and again with the synchronous teaching in that particular couple of disciplines and using the camera. And then at the same time, we're on this road in the DE department committee. Academic affairs says, wait a minute, can you talk about cameras? And so it kind of came together that way because there were some concerns that students had of being required to have a camera on during this crazy pandemic we've been going through. So we kind of merged that together, but it was initiated by faculty and then asked to be supported through academic affairs. So what was the process? Because we have joint committees and we work together, this came through, we came up with the draft, and it just so everybody knows, when we worked on this draft, it was not just a one and a done. We invited guests, we welcomed guests to come in and share their points of views. It was presented both at Academic Senate and heard, and the voices from the Academic Senate was heard, as well as and then it went through exec as well. And then finally in December, once it had gone through the proper process and protocols, it was read to the Board of Trustees, so they were aware that we came up with this camera use. So now I'm going to just go over just some bottom lines that we came up with. Be it resolved that unless camera use is essential for meeting, so in other words, we want, just like any tool you have in your classroom, it's with intentionality. Why am I having the students turn on their camera? So one was making sure that it is going to support your course objectives or assignments that are going on in that course. Sometimes it also may be to monitor students' health and concerns. If it's a lab class, the teacher wants to know, make sure you're not mixing chemicals that shouldn't be mixed, or if you're doing something in a row. So I need to see you for in this remote or synchronous teaching. I need to be able to see what you're doing. So that would be another reason. Again, if I'm teaching yoga, I need to see the form you're using so I can maybe say, oh, maybe twist a little. So there's going to be reasons why I want to intentionally use a camera for my course. And the last one is, so it's these three, and if that's going to be the case that we're saying we're going to use a camera because it's best practice for this course, it's safety, etc., then we need to inform students. It's like, so they would be aware of that in this course, we're going to ask you to turn on a camera. And these would be the reasons why. So again, it's just being informed, working with our students to talk about that. So that's the bottom line for our resolution, but now we're going to dissect it just a little bit.
You want me to take it from here, Laura?
Yes, please.
Okay, gotcha. So one of the whereas statements in any resolution in the Academic Senate are all the reasons why. So one of the first reason why we came up with those resolutions that Laura outlined is that we know that people want to use synchronous instruction. So in the past, online education usually meant, almost always meant, asynchronous education. So we were saying one of the reasons why we created this resolution was that we know that there are times when the synchronous teaching will be more appropriate for meeting learning outcomes and contexts such as, global pandemics and such. So that's what the first whereas statement really is about. The other, the next reason is that we're creating support for instructors who want to have synchronous classes. So we're saying these are the bottom lines about the preferred practice, but we're going to support instructors to help them use these synchronous teaching methods appropriately. So that's forthcoming from this committee, from the Distance Education Committee. And now over to Odemaris.
For me, you're talking about the other ones?
Yep.
Okay.
The third one, please. Yes.
Yeah.
Muted, so.
Okay. Do you want this or you want the other?
The previous one, number 3, please.
Okay, let me.
Thank you. So the third resolution, or the whereas, is we are requiring in some classes, as we were reviewed, that having a camera for the faculty to see the students is important, but also we have to be conscious and mindful of using camera in regular or general classes because there is a FERPA regulation. And also keep in mind that the space or the area that student is using may be shared with other family members, other members that they may not be willing to show in the camera, and also their safety and psychological mindfulness of who is showing up in their camera to the entire class is very, very helpful. So what we are generally referring is that, especially when you're starting the recording of your sessions, please let your students know that they can turn off the camera, as sometimes I do myself, turn off the camera so that the students focus on the program, on the activity, on the slide that I'm showing more than what the camera, the live camera is showing. So please be mindful of that as well. Next one, please. Thank you. And another issue is the reliability of their connection, of their internet connection. So you have to also be mindful of what devices students use. Is it their private device? Is it equipped to camera? Does it have the high-speed internet access? Or maybe they're sharing one device among different household members, especially now in this pandemic environment. There may be other family members, siblings that they have like one device, and then they have to share the time for their classes and other school or work activities that they have in mind. So please also be aware of that what technology is available. And if there are any issues that the student come up with to you, internet didn't work, or I was in the middle of the quiz and I was disconnected. So please investigate, look into it, work with them, because in this situation, everybody needs help, especially with internet access and how they can get to the content and our course material that we are teaching them. Thank you.
Okay, for the last part is that it's very important to talk about the accommodation from students with disability. As you know, we're required by Title, well, by Title V, but also by all the what is 508 compliance, that we need to have some kind of captioning in progress. So if you want to record this and share with your students later, we have, and you guys have to help me on this, OT, I think, OT, you told me, but I forgot.
It's Otter, and it's the live captioning if we're doing this live, correct?
Yes, so that this one will record what you're saying. But of course, after you record it, if you're going to share with the students, you have to go back and spend a few minutes cleaning it up, because it does, it's not 100% perfect. So we have to go back and, kind of cleaning it up. And then, of course, when we make this available, there's different tools we're going to discuss later, where you can actually, or you can reach out to Distance Education to tell you more or less all the places that you can put and share these recordings, because we need to make it available for our students. And also, they might be some, any accommodation that we need to give to students, we have to be very proactive. There is a different ways that we can assist our students. And especially if there is anything with the camera, I believe the Disabled Student Center will be providing some of these equipment that students will need. And all we need to do is to refer them. Sometimes as teachers, we have to also take the initiative to help them. Sometimes even it might require us to pick up the phone, but we all gonna work together to make our students feel that they are heard, and also that we're there for them. Okay, so there are a lot of different tools, but again, reaching out to the Disabled Student Center will be one good way of helping our students with disability. Okay. And now, this is something that we are going to simplify some of the reasons again. I don't know if Joelle would like to pick up on this.
Sure. So I think I just wanted to pick up on Muriel's question in the chat, right? The suggestion basically that we are making as the Distance Education Committee, and that the Senate exec and the Senate has agreed, is that instructors should not ask students to keep their cameras on unless it is pedagogically necessary, it's related to health and safety, or it's related to licensure in some way. So there are reasons why you might have to have the camera on, but unless there are very specific reasons, the suggestion is that we keep the camera, we don't require students to keep their cameras on for these reasons that Fariba and Odemaris and I have just outlined. Because of privacy, because technology isn't always reliable, because it's not equitable, because we are going to do other things to support the students and make sure that instructors are also supported. So for all of these reasons, the suggestion is that we do not require students to have their cameras on unless there are those very specific circumstances.
And can I add one more thing too, is that sometimes, there are disabilities that are obvious, I will say, and then some students might not want for other students to see what, their disability are, because some of them, we cannot see it, but some of them are physical. So we need to be sympathetic for that and not force the students to be on camera in front of all, everybody in the class. If they don't have to. If we can prevent that, we need to support that. Okay, and let me move the next. Okay. So for this one, so this is some of the discussions that we are going to have. And do you want me to take the first too? Or you, Joelle, are you going to take it for the discussion of the worship?
Sure. I mean, I think we should just open it up to the participants and see what everyone has to say, what questions you have, what your experiences are, when it's worked well, when it hasn't worked well. And yeah, of course, if you have any questions for us about the resolution or the process. So I think it's over to the participants at this point.
Yeah. Yes. And I think you can unmute yourself so that you can ask your question directly.
Can I ask him, Susan? Well, in my English 2 classes, I find it very important that the cameras are turned on when they are discussing the literature with me or with a colleague. My classes, English 2 classes, are basically reader response. So they're not lecture. So it's kind of disconcerting when you have a point to make, or if you're countering somebody else's point and you can't see their face, you can't engage in them physically. I tell them, as soon as you finish talking, you can turn your camera back off if you're uncomfortable, but I don't quite know how to negotiate that, this discomfort. I mean, certainly if they don't turn their camera on and they want to continue to talk in the discussion with somebody else or with myself, and then of course I'm not going to stop them, but I tell them I prefer to have that, because as you know, those of in the room engaged in critical discussion, and it doesn't have to be literature, it can be on anything. There's nothing like that energy that goes back and forth in the on-ground class when you're disagreeing about, what this character is doing and what that author is intending to do, et cetera. And so I like having that energy. And I'll tell you the truth, I have no problem with the cameras. I think people somehow maintain that energy even with the cameras. So I haven't had a problem with Zoom and synchronous classes. I'm not one who has found it to be that detrimental to a reader response class. So.
Thanks, Mario. I think, this is exactly why we created the resolution, right? So I completely understand what you're saying, but the guidance is that you don't require them to, right? So as much as I would like it, I think we all feel more comfortable when the camera's on for various reasons, when we are the presenter or the teacher, right? You're not getting those cues and that feedback. But for all the reasons in the resolution, we're suggesting that you don't actually require students to have their camera on unless it's related specifically to the learning outcomes, health and safety, or licensure, really. So I think this is a really good example of like instructor preference isn't really good enough of a reason at this point, particularly in the current environment, because these are students that didn't choose to learn online. So I think once we start talking about different modalities that may arise in the near future, like online classes that do have a synchronous component, but when students have the option to sign up for that class, then we could maybe revisit that a little bit, because then the student is making a choice. But right now they don't have any choice but to learn in this way. So if they don't want to have their camera on and you're saying, I'd really prefer it, and you're the professor, they might feel unduly pressured to do something that they don't want to do. But I hear you. But I think that it will change in the future as the context changes.
Yeah,
that's my prediction.
Yeah. And can I add a little bit on that too, is that keep in mind, some students are not just open. I mean, when we're talking about somebody responding or having something online, they're opening to everybody in the class that are watching them. They're watching where they live. They're watching if there are 20 people behind them, if they're living poverty, if they are in a car. We have homeless students. So they might want to keep that part of their life away from the classroom. And if we, we can suggest, like you have been doing so far, but we cannot mandate in most of the situations. Because of that, we have to respect that part of their world that they don't want us to be part of. So I think, so if we keep that little piece in mind that we might have, just think about a homeless students on the other end, and they don't want to show it to the world. Maybe we will not request or force too much to the students to show everything on the camera. That's my take.
May I ask something?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so FERPA, does it mandate, I have 3 little points. Does FERPA mandate that we cannot ask them to cut on their cameras? Yes or no?
Well, it's not that. Okay, I'll give you examples. Like we're recording this, right?
Yeah.
If we were recording this, because your names are there, if you were reversed and you were actually students, that's a FERPA violation, because now anybody can see your full name.
Oh my goodness.
So that's a FERPA, and in the document that Joelle will repost it, there's a link to that kind of spells that out. So that's why when we're saying recording, that's nice if they want, and you can come up with there's ways we can do this. Like instead of saying Mural Walker, maybe it's MWW, you could say, put your initials in.
Got it.
So there's ways, but we have to be respectful, because again, we do live in a crazy world. There's some cuckoo people out here that, take an identity and all these other kind of things that can happen. So it's just being conscious and intentional about what we're doing.
Okay, so I'm going to tell my students to do that, because my Chem 10 students now do at-home labs. So risk management, Daniel.
That's fine. 100%. You're fine doing that. To watch them.
Report them.
Yes.
Okay,
if you give them notification and you're saying, because you're working with chemicals, you're one of the highlighted ones about the science labs, because we listen to the science lab people, because we understand if you're putting 2 chemicals, I need to see you pouring acid into this and go, wait, stop. So I need to watch you. I need to be able to do that. So that's one, again, if you're telling them in advance, 100%, that's fine.
Okay.
100%.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, my last thing is tests.
Mhm.
My exams, I've been having them do Zoom with
Okay.
the camera in the back, and then I can watch their screen. No proctorial, because everybody hated proctorial, so I don't do that. So now let me ask, I cannot record it. Is that correct?
I think that if you let them know it ahead of time, you're not in violation.
Yeah, I did. It was all, it's in the schedule, everything, camera, everything.
You have it on the schedule. So that's the key word.
Yeah.
It's going to be recorded. What I think it will not be okay is that we don't put it on the schedule and then suddenly we decide, oh, well, I want to start recording everything. That will be a problem.
Okay. So thank you. Please have names changed too. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Alan?
Could I piggyback on what Muriel just said, please?
Okay, and then I'll go to Alan. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt.
That's okay. Go ahead, Alan.
And I'm Muriel. I also am doing a 2-device Zoom recording, or Zoom assessments. And prior to the semester I send it, I do record those, but I don't give those recordings to the students. Those are only saved onto my computer, my device, and their only purpose is to assess academic honesty. That's it.
Okay. Alan? You can unmute yourself.
Actually, I think Sue Lee was before me. I think she raised her hand.
I couldn't. All I saw was hands across. So I didn't.
I think Sue Lee was.
Okay, Sue, go ahead. Thank you, Alan.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. So I guess I was going to answer the questions for like what works well and what doesn't. I'm one of the life sciences professors, so I do have lab classes where they're working with chemicals and things. And so there are always situations where students maybe don't want to show their face. And so in those situations, we ask them to just have their camera pan to their workspace so that we can at least see what they're doing. So if they're uncomfortable or they don't want to show their surroundings, if you just angle the camera to what they're working on, This might also work for exams if the students aren't comfortable showing where they are. You can at least have them, face the camera to their worksheet or whatever they're working on, and that saves some privacy concerns or addresses some privacy concerns. The other thing that I wanted to say was there is an inequity in where webcams are currently expensive and a lot of students can't get access to them. And so the way we addressed that was Santa Monica College has a lot of Chromebooks that they're loaning out, and the webcams on the Chromebooks were great. So I think I've had at least 20 students get loaner Chromebooks, and they've never had any issues using the Chromebooks. So those were challenges that arose in my situation, how I addressed them, and I just wanted to share. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, now, Alan.
Yeah, I like your resolution. I think it's good, and I think it's very reasonable. And you've made your point. But I have a completely different concern, and I seem to be the only one worried about this. And I just wonder if there'd been any discussion by your committee on this question. According to the Chancellor's office, any recorded class becomes a permanent part of the student's academic record. So I guess if we share these videos, which I don't know where they're going to be permanently stored, by the way, if we're going to share these videos with the other students, does that mean, unlike everything else in the student's permanent record, this is not privileged? Does that make any sense?
I know what you're saying, because it does. I know I read that thing about it being part of the permanent record. Most people aren't keeping their videos after, they keep
are we required to keep them because of that ruling? I mean, it's like you can't go in and erase somebody's grade on a transcript.
Right. That might think may have a different, we may have to have a little bit different conversation, but I'm not getting crazy over that one, by the way.
Yeah, I know I seem to be the only crazy one. That's okay. But
no, I didn't mean it like that. No, because typically when you record to Zoom, for example, after so many days, it disappears unless you permanently download it. You see what I'm saying? That's why I think, that's the reason I say I'm not that concerned about those.
Do you know what
it fades away?
I think they're talking about when it comes to permanent record is the same amount of time that we keep our, the grades that we give to students, the ones that faculty gives. We don't have, even in Canvas, after, I don't know, so many days, we cannot go back into and even use some of the material that we already had. So I think 2 or 3 years, because in case a student challenge you for a grade change, that is the time that you're supposed to keep it, but nothing beyond that.
And if they demand to see it and we can't produce it, then the student's going to win default.
That's why you keep it on 3C Media. 3C Media.
Who's going to keep all these things? I don't have room on my hard drive for all these videos.
That's what I'm saying. 3C Media is a cloud base.
But if the cloud doesn't keep them for permanent, are we once again violating our responsibility to the student because we're loading them to a cloud which is not permanent?
Well, we can put it on 365, OneDrive. And we can we can do a whole workshopping. I would be happy to help you if we need to do that, and we can put that, because that's what 3C Media is suggesting, to put all this video in Office 365, and we have a big storage.
Okay, I think it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Roman, your hand is up.
Yes.
Okay.
I have, I think, a simple question.
Sure.
One is, are we allowed to just record all our Zoom meetings without any video, like office hours? Are we allowed to record those and keep them, not have them available for them, but just to keep it for ourselves?
Oh, you can have it available for your student. Just again, you're going to just let them. We're going to record this. All office hours are recorded. You listen, it's just being, it's like common courtesy, just letting them know that they're going to be recorded so that they know when they're on there, especially because sometimes as in real life, if a student comes into your office, sometimes there's emotional things that happen that just get spewed on by something. So they're just aware of it. That's all. And again, there's a beautiful thing. There's a pause button because sometimes it does happen when you're meeting, even over Zoom, that you may need to hit pause in a recording. And it's just, again, being intentional and aware.
But when we record them, we do not have to have every recording available to the students. It's only, like, for example, I record my lab lectures, but I don't have them available for the students, like on a regular basis, only when some people miss a lab or something. Is that allowed?
That's fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'll raise my hand then.
Okay, go ahead.
So what I ask my students to do is, if they don't have a camera or do not wish to be put, on a camera, I just ask them to put NC after their names, and and that way I don't embarrass them. I don't embarrass myself. I don't expect them to turn their camera on, and I don't make a big deal. But if they don't have that NC after their name, I may ask them to turn on their camera, and if they say no, I say, okay, you're not going to turn it on. What's your point? But I always, if I have a question to ask, I always ask questions to students who have their cameras on, or at least have a avatar of some sort.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm saying. Those are those suggestions you can say. Make an avatar of yourself. You don't have to use, because we don't know the students' personal lives. I mean, I've had a mommy that has an ex-husband that's crazy. Bottom line, and so she doesn't want her face because she's afraid that somebody else may see it, and then that's a problem. So again, I just think just being intentional about how do we make sure we're meeting the needs of our students and meeting the needs of teaching this course. And I just think it's just taking time and stepping back and looking, and we can do this.
And I just add that I think sometimes when we say, I would prefer, or I'm requesting, that students don't always hear that as a request, right? Because we're in a position of authority over their grades, for example. So as usual, I think a little bit of grace to our colleagues and our students, but also just some open, honest communication of, I like it when I can see your faces and I get more information about how you are working with this material, and it just makes everyone feel more friendly and it creates more of a community. I think some context like that might encourage more students to turn on their cameras. So I think some transparency and some context and some rationale from us, if we really do want students to have their cameras on, can be really helpful. And I would also point out that this resolution is a resolution that came from the Distance Education Committee, went to Senate Exec, and went through the Senate. So your representatives, agreed to this resolution, but it's also not binding. These are suggestions for good practice. And we know that there are all sorts of circumstances when that might not apply, and where it might not apply. And we think that we covered most of those in those exceptions, but this kind of conversation is really useful for everyone to understand some of the reasons why we might want to be more transparent about that.
And I just want to add, a lot of times I hear faculty have said, I want the camera on so I know that they're there and participating and paying attention. And I always say, even in your live class, not everybody was paying attention. They might have been sitting there, but they weren't paying attention. Because we do it. We sit in we sit in our meetings, you make your grocery list, you're not. So there's ways that we can be creative, and within that document, we've kind of offered some suggestions. You know, there's the poll. So there's questions you can pop up. You can have a Google Doc. So there's ways to have participation and making sure your students are connecting to the material without me actually having to see their face. Again, the face is important. We like having that interaction. We get that. Like I'll give you an example, even my own home at 4 o'clock, I have a husband that comes home, and it's very annoying because he's walking behind me and he forgets. I kind of tell him when the big thing is talking, I'm in a meeting, but he forgets and he'll walk up. You know, that's happening to our students, and they have the little kids are coming in. So we always have to be aware of what's going on. That's what I'm saying. It's all about being mindful, intentional about how we're doing, and think about what is my ultimate goal? I want to know that they're connecting to the material. Well, I don't need to have their face to do that. I can come up with a discussion question. I can come up with a poll. I can, you know, there's lots of different creative ways to meet those needs. And that's what we're saying. Just think of what's your ultimate goal, and let's see how can we get there. And again, I'm mentioning, like Mario mentioned, that I'm having a debate. Or, well, yeah, that's an important thing to see. That's how you tell when in a debate, you're looking at a face. So that would be something I would want to see the two people interacting with each other. You know, so again, think about what's the ultimate goal, and then let's be creative of how we can get there. And then I see Alan has his hand up.
Please indulge the political scientist in me.
Go for it.
So the board approved this. Was there any discussion at the board? Did students or faculty, or are the board meetings all virtual? I'm just interested what the board's take was on all of this.
Let me explain the way the process goes and Joelle will correct me. It goes through the committee, it goes through exec, it goes through the Senate. And then Nate, as the academic Senate president, just reads our resolution to the board. They don't vote on it. It's more like an information to say, guess what the faculty are doing? And this is what they've come up with at this point. So it's not a voted, I don't even believe it's like agendized. It's just, I think when Nate does his Senate report and he shares what's going on.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I thought this was already a done deal by the board and everything.
Well, it's a done deal by us, correct?
Yeah.
Yes, by the campus.
Well, like I say, I support it. I like it. I think you did a good job.
Thank you. Well, we did listen to everybody. We really did invite and welcome anybody who came. That's why we do it. We went to exec 3 times. We even went to Senate 3 times, even though it was 2 official ones, because we did like a preempt, an informational one, because we know this is a topic. I try to always come from a strength-based thing that everybody wants what's best for their students. So I know people want to do what's best. So we really wanted to make sure we're listening and hearing what people have to say.
Yeah, and can I add one more thing that we discussed last time too, is that, you know, right now we're going through this pandemic, but one of the things that also that I mentioned that we have to keep in mind is that today we have a pandemic, tomorrow we can have a big earthquake and go back to this. So if we are very proactive and start building a pathway where we're gonna be serving our students no matter what circumstances we're gonna have in California, then we're gonna be in a better place, because we don't know what's gonna happen in our future. So we just, you know, wanted to do the best for our students. So that's why we need everybody collaboration so that we can all be in the same pace, giving the best to our students.
Any other questions, thoughts? So one of the documents we have, I think we have listed 10. I should have pulled it up, my bad. But I think we've listed like maybe 10 different activities that can be in place of using a camera. But as we keep going along, we're going to keep learning other options. We will keep adding it. So we're going to make it more of a dynamic oh, there you go. Thank you. A dynamic document. So please think of, you may walk away and come up with, oh, I thought of an idea that'd be a nice way to check on to make sure students are connecting with the material. So please just email us and let us know. We'll add that to the list.
And if anyone has any questions, please send them my way and we will do our best to work through them in the Distance Education Committee.
Okay.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Fascinated to see how many people were inquiring about this. It's
And
really-
if you're interested in learning how to upload your Zoom videos to OneDrive, tell Joelle, and then she's going to help me to do maybe a mini workshop where we can put all these videos so you don't have to worry about it. It's going to be easy. It's not very difficult. No questions? We're here. Take advantage.